Okay, so today we're diving deep into something really fascinating. The third Mountain and Sea Footprints Forum.
Yeah, this one was all about interdisciplinary fieldwork.
Exactly. And you know what grabbed my attention right away? It's how they're bringing geography and technology together.
And weaving in local Taiwanese culture, too.
Yeah, all under this idea of Hejing Pingan, which is often translated as communal harmony and peace.
Right, but it goes so much deeper than that.
Way deeper. So we're going to be looking at excerpts from the forum's documentation.
Like we're getting a behind-the-scenes peek into how these experts are trying to make learning more hands-on.
Yeah, get the students out of the classroom and really exploring their world.
That's the mission here.
Totally.
Yeah.
And one of the coolest things they're doing is this Hejing Pingan initiative.
It's a real game changer.
It is. And it's backed by the National Science and Technology Council, so you know it's serious stuff.
They're using something called VGI, Volunteered Geographic Information.
It's like crowdsourced mapping, right?
Exactly, and they're combining it with traditional Taiwanese beliefs about how settlements are laid out.
Specifically, this thing called Wying Bingzhang, the 5 Camps Heavenly Soldiers.
Have you ever heard of that?
It rings a bell, but I definitely need a refresher.
Basically, it's this idea that guardian deities are placed at specific points around a community.
Like they're protecting the place.
Yeah, and these placements aren't random. They're tied to the cardinal directions.
So it's not just folklore, it's like a spatial blueprint for how people understood their world.
Exactly, and the project uses this existing cultural framework to create these amazing educational opportunities.
So smart. So how does it actually work?
They've got these online workshops for teachers and then actual field work for the students.
Okay, so they're really putting these ideas into practice.
Yeah, the goal is to create this whole cycle from gathering data and making maps to using it in the classroom.
With a cloud database that everyone can access.
Teachers, students, the whole community can contribute.
I love that. This forum, being the third one, really dove into the practical side of things.
You know, the challenges and the opportunities of making this kind of interdisciplinary learning happen.
Because it's not always easy to bridge those gaps between different subjects.
But they're showing that it can be done.
And the impact is huge. It's not just about memorizing facts.
It's about students becoming active participants in shaping knowledge.
And contributing to their communities.
Exactly. And we had some amazing speakers who really brought these ideas to life.
Like Professor Shen Schumann from National Taiwan Normal University.
She was fantastic. She laid out the whole vision behind the Hejing Pingan project.
And then Professor Lin Shenquin, also from NTNU, shared his expertise on designing fieldwork activities.
Especially in places with diverse cultures and religious practices.
Talk about a challenge.
Yeah.
And Professor Sung-Yu Ling, the president of the Geographical Society, gave us the big picture perspective.
It was such a great mix of knowledge and experience.
Okay, so let's get into Professor Shen's presentation. She started by explaining the main goal of the Hejing Pingan project,
which is to use these local belief spaces, the Wing Bing Jiang, as a jumping-off point.
To create interdisciplinary modules that work for different age groups.
Yeah, they want to teach kids about spatial literacy.
Starting with things that are already familiar to them.
Like their own local beliefs and how those beliefs are connected to the place they live.
It's so much more engaging than just opening a textbook.
Totally. And she talked about how geography education needs to move beyond just knowing where things are on a map.
It's about thinking spatially, right?
Exactly. It's about understanding the relationships between things in space.
And how those relationships create meaning and shape our actions.
And they're doing this by bringing in digital technology.
Which makes it so much more accessible to students today.
And the use of VGI is really key here.
Because it means anyone can contribute to mapping and understanding their own community.
It's not just for experts anymore.
Students can go out and collect data, take pictures, create maps.
They're not just passively receiving information. They're actively creating it.
That's so empowering.
It is. And the Wing Bing Jiang provide this perfect example for learning.
Because they're already embedded in the landscape.
So kids can go out and find these guardian deities.
See how they're placed around the settlement.
And understand how that relates to geography and the environment.
It's like a living history lesson right there in their own backyard.
And Professor Shen laid out this really cool 3-stage teaching module.
It's like a step-by-step guide for how to bring these ideas into the classroom.
The first stage is called Basic Exploration.
And it starts with students looking at their own family's beliefs.
And the protectors they believe in.
They can even interview their grandparents.
Yeah, it's about making that personal connection.
And then they learn some basic map skills.
Like how to use a compass or read a map.
So they can start observing their own community with fresh eyes.
The next stage is field investigation. And this is where things get really exciting.
Because the students actually go out and find the Wying in their community.
They can use compass apps on their phones.
Measure the orientation of the sites.
And see how they relate to temples and other important buildings.
They can even create maps and take pictures.
And for schools that can't do outdoor field work, they suggested using Google Maps.
Or resources from the National Land Surveying and Mapping Center.
So it's adaptable to different situations.
I love that. The final stage is advanced practice, and this is where things get really in-depth.
Students interview local elders to learn about the history of the Wying.
How they've changed over time.
And how they're still being used today.
Then they compare different settlements.
And create these amazing thematic maps.
Or even advocacy brochures to help preserve these cultural traditions.
So they're not just learning about the past, they're using their knowledge to shape the future.
That's powerful. And to support all of this, the project created this online platform.
It's hosted by the Ministry of the Interior's National Land Surveying and Mapping Center.
And students and teachers can upload all their data there.
So they're building this huge database of Wingbingjiang locations across Taiwan.
It's like a crowdsourced map of cultural beliefs.
Which is so important because there's not much information out there about these things.
Professor Shen pointed out that we have a national temple registry.
But there's no systematic record of these smaller cultural features.
So this project is helping to fill that gap.
And they're making it super easy for teachers to get involved.
They created these spatial thinking planning sheets.
And inquiry-based learning sheets.
They're all available on the Hejing Ping'an Facebook page, so teachers can easily adapt these activities to their own curriculum.
And Professor Chen really emphasized that this isn't just for geography class.
It can be integrated into local studies, information education, outdoor learning.
Even club activities and self-directed learning.
Because the core idea is that cultural landscapes are always changing.
They're not static objects. They're the result of how people interact with their environment.
So it's about teaching students to see their own community in a new way.
To be active observers and interpreters of their surroundings.
And they encourage teachers to submit student work to competitions.
Or even have students present their findings to the community.
So they're taking their learning beyond the classroom.
And making a real impact.
She ended by urging teachers to get involved.
To embrace this new way of teaching geography.
And I think that's so inspiring.
It is. It's about realizing the potential of learning geography through local culture.
Okay, so let's switch gears to Professor Lin Shenkin's presentation.
He focused on the challenges of representing different cultures and beliefs in fieldwork.
Especially how to turn these multicultural and religious spaces into meaningful learning experiences.
Right, it's not enough to just visit a site. You have to understand the deeper meaning behind it.
And he shared this framework he uses for planning fieldwork activities.
It's based on 3 key elements: event mechanism, time sequence, and spatial relationship.
He emphasizes that these elements should be the foundation for any fieldwork design.
Because it ensures that the activities are both operational and encourage reflection.
So it's not just about going through the motions.
It's about understanding the why behind the what.
I like that. And when it came to choosing locations for fieldwork, he had a really fascinating approach.
He focused on how villages have developed across different ethnic groups in Taiwan.
Looking at how those spatial patterns have changed over time.
Yeah, from the original forms to the way they are today.
He gave some great examples from Yilan.
He started with Dakong Hangsi, which is a traditional Atayal village.
And he talked about the importance of understanding indigenous cultures.
And how their beliefs are tied to the land.
He also looked at Swa Wuwaigang as a typical Hokkien village.
Showing the traditional layout of the temple and the Wuying spaces.
And then he contrasted that with Wujijialiwun,
which is a village where Hokkien and Kavalan people have intermingled.
And as a result, the Wuying are now clustered in the center of the village.
It's a great example of how migration and cultural exchange can reshape the landscape.
Then he shifted to Miaoli, where he compared the Hejing, or communal harmony, of different ethnic groups.
He looked at Zunan Kugongguan as a representation of Hokkien beliefs.
And he pointed out the significance of the Guangdong Temple,
which is dedicated to the spirits of soldiers who died in the 1895 war.
It shows how historical events can become embedded in the landscape.
He also discussed Tufan Duanping, which is a Hakka village.
And highlighted the Jingtu Bogong Temple,
which is dedicated to the wellhead earth god.
Showing how their beliefs are tied to water resources.
And finally, he talked about Nanshuan Xiangtianhu, which is a Saisiat community.
Where he showed the integration of Han Chinese and indigenous beliefs.
With the presence of both the Sea Spirit Festival grounds and the Feud Temple.
It's a great example of how different cultures can coexist and influence each other.
And Professor Lin stressed that fieldwork shouldn't just be about visiting a single site
He advocates for using multiple points of investigation.
to create a more complete narrative,
He used Suawuwagang as an example.
saying that by looking at the village temple, the strengthened camp, and the village entrance together.
Students can understand the defensive strategies built into the settlement,
He also discussed the Kugongguan area,
where he said that studying the Feud Temple and the Guangdong Temple together.
can reveal the spatial arrangement based on yin and yang beliefs.
And he used the Shanqianhu tribe as an example of how indigenous peoples use space to mark their sacred rituals,
So it's about giving students a broader perspective.
helping them to see the connections between different places and events.
And he also emphasized the importance of designing activities that are appropriate for different age groups.
He talked about recipe-style inquiry, where students are given very specific instructions.
Then structured inquiry, where they have more freedom to explore.
And finally, guided inquiry, where they're basically given a topic and have to come up with their own research methods.
It's a really thoughtful way of scaffolding learning.
And he shared some really cool examples of fieldwork projects that go beyond just traditional beliefs,
Like Chaebudai Junior High School's exploration of sustainable development.
where they visited a solar power plant, a biotech factory, and a wetland park.
It shows how fieldwork can be applied to a wide range of contemporary issues.
He also mentioned Hsinshu High School's study of the relationship between school development and cemetery transformation.
And Naihu High School's project on the conversion of an old river channel into a park,
It's all about using the local environment as a learning tool.
and making those connections between the past, present, and future.
Professor Lin wrapped up his presentation with a powerful message.
He said, use geography to train logic and use fieldwork to discover the world,
It's about developing those critical thinking skills.
and using them to explore and understand the world around us.
I think that's a perfect segue to Professor Somyuling's commentary
She did an amazing job of tying everything together.
and offering some really insightful perspectives,
She started by reviewing the 3 mountain and sea footprints forums.
showing how they've progressed from basic fieldwork design to the integration of technology and culture.
The first forum focused on reflective fieldwork experiences,
The second emphasized specialized fieldwork and overseas investigations,
and this third forum brought in the cultural and technological aspects.
really showcasing the power of spatial information technology,
And she posed some really thought-provoking questions for educators,
like why they chose sacred space as a central theme.
and how it bridges different fields like religion, geography, and culture,
She also asked how to make this content accessible to younger students,
how to ensure meaningful community engagement,
and how to sustain the online platform for sharing resources. And she raised the important issue of assessment.
how to evaluate student learning in this kind of experiential setting.
It's not just about grades, it's about capturing their growth and understanding.
And as president of the Geographical Society, she highlighted their efforts to promote geography education,
They're compiling information about geography departments across Taiwan.
to encourage more students to study geography,
And she ended by encouraging everyone to join the Geographical Society.
to be part of this movement, to innovate and improve geography education.
She said that geography is a field that takes students to see the world.
And through these forums and projects,
They hope that every student can find a way to connect with the world in their own community. So beautiful.
I know, right?
And there were some really interesting discussions during the Q&A.
Professor Shen clarified that they're not trying to be overly academic with this project,
It's more about using tangible symbols like the Ying.
to make spatial concepts easier for younger students to grasp.
And Professor Lin explained that the choice of fieldwork locations is very deliberate,
It's about highlighting the spatial relationships between places.
and how those relationships reflect historical events and cultural adaptations
They also talked about the need for modular teaching materials
that can be adapted for different age groups
and the potential for students to create advocacy maps.
to address real-world issues in their communities. And the forum ended with an announcement about the Geographical Society's upcoming annual meeting.
It's going to be at National Taiwan Normal University in late April.
And they'll have all sorts of interesting sessions on interdisciplinary learning and bilingual geography teaching.
It sounds amazing. I can't wait to go.
Me too. And they're going to post videos of the forum online.
So people who couldn't attend can still benefit from all these great ideas.
Perfect. So to sum up this deep dive, we've learned how the Hedging Pingman project is using technology.
To bring local culture and spatial learning to life.
That three-stage learning module is such a great way to empower students.
Become active researchers in their own communities.
And the Wanbing Jiang provide this unique window into spatial organization, cultural values, and community identity.
Professor Lin's framework for fieldwork design is a really valuable tool.
For helping teachers create engaging and thought-provoking activities.
And there's a wealth of resources available from both the project and the Geographical Society.
So there's no excuse not to get involved.
Right. Let's take these ideas and run with them.
So here's a final thought for everyone listening.
Take a look around your own community.
What are the landmarks and traditions that tell the story of your place?
How can you use spatial thinking to uncover those hidden narratives?
It's a whole new way of seeing the world.
And it's waiting to be explored.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
Until next time.